Harut Sassounian, the publisher of the California Courier newspaper, is the president of the United Armenian Fund, which has shipped $600 million worth of humanitarian assistance to Armenia since 1989. He is also the senior vice president of the Lindsay Foundation, which has funded $230 million worth of infrastructure projects in Armenia and Artsakh. His book, The Armenian Genocide, The World Speaks Out, 1915 to 2005, Documents and Declarations, was published in 2005. Please welcome Mr. Harut Sassounian to the podium.
Սրբազան հայրեր, հոգևոր հայրեր, genocide survivors, elected officials, and honored guests. It is a special honor for me to address you today. Yesterday, I spoke at a similar commemoration in Paris, where 10,000 Armenians marched along the world-famous Avenue Champs-Élysées. And along with Charles Aznavour, held a special wreath-laying ceremony at the Arc de Triomphe. During my lecture tour in Lebanon and France, many Armenians were asking me if President Obama was going to say genocide on April 24. They also wanted to know if the House of Representatives would pass the Armenian Genocide Resolution that was adopted by the Committee on Foreign Affairs last month. As you know, once again, President Obama did not say genocide in his April 24 statement. Instead, he used all the euphemisms and shameful word games that he, as a senator and presidential candidate, so strongly condemned President Bush for. It is disheartening that President Obama ran his campaign on a slogan of change only to adopt the same immoral position of his predecessors, even though he keeps saying that he has not changed his mind. Last April, thank you. Last April, after President Obama first broke his promise to acknowledge the genocide, I wrote a column titled, To Obama, You Too Obama. I would like to read you a couple of lines from that column, since he yesterday issued basically the same unacceptable statement he did a year ago. This is what I wrote. Mr. President, when you were seeking votes and financial support from Armenian Americans, you did not promise us to recognize the Metzgerern. You actually told us, as president, I will recognize the Armenian genocide. Moreover, you did not state that your acknowledgement of the genocide is contingent upon Armenian-Turkish negotiations, opening Armenia's border, war in Iraq, or anything else. You made a flat-out promise with no ifs or buts. By not keeping your word on April 24, you have only succeeded in undermining your own credibility in front of the American people and world public opinion. I also wrote, Mr. President, it was improper of you to exploit Turkey's make-believe negotiations with Armenia by using it as a pretext for avoiding the genocide word in your April 24 statement. You knew that the Turkish government's intent all along has been to create the false impression that its discussions with Armenia are proceeding smoothly, making everyone believe that the border would open shortly, thus providing you a convenient excuse to duck your repeated solemn promises on the Armenian genocide. That's what I wrote a year ago. That's what I wrote a year ago. Now, I would like to... Thank you. I would like to tell you today that it does not matter much whether President Obama says Armenian genocide or not. Most Armenians believe that the United States does not recognize the Armenian genocide. That is simply not true. President Ronald Reagan issued a presidential proclamation on April 22, 1981, that specifically says, quote, the genocide of the Armenians, end of quote. This is why Obama saying genocide 30 years after Reagan does not add much new to our cause. The House of Representatives, the full House, not just the committee, both in 1975 and 1984, adopted resolutions recognizing the Armenian genocide. Furthermore, the legislatures of 43 out of 50 US states and countless governors and mayors have recognized the Armenian genocide. In fact, the US government first acknowledged the Armenian genocide all the way back in 1951 in a document it submitted to the World Court. In addition to the United States, more than 20 other countries have acknowledged the Armenian genocide since 1965. Furthermore, the UN Subcommission on Prevention of Discrimination and Protection of Minorities adopted a report in 1985 stating that the Armenian genocide meets the UN criteria for genocide. As you know, the European Parliament also adopted a resolution in 1987 recognizing the Armenian genocide. In addition, hundreds of Holocaust and genocide scholars have issued joint statements confirming the facts of the Armenian genocide. After so many acknowledgements, the Armenian genocide has become a universally recognized historical fact. However, a simple acknowledgement of the genocide would not heal the wounds and undo its devastating consequences. Armenians seek justice in order to restore their historic rights and gain the return of their confiscated lands and properties. You already know about the successful lawsuits against American and French insurance companies and pending lawsuits against German banks. Armenians are entitled, just as in the case of the Holocaust, to just compensation for their enormous losses of homes, lands, houses of worship, and personal properties. Armenian organizations, after consulting international lawyers, should file lawsuits against Turkey to return to the Armenian Patriarchate in Istanbul the more than 2,000 Armenian churches and religious properties that have been expropriated and converted to mosques, warehouses, houses, or outright destroyed. Armenians no longer need to waste their resources to prove that a genocide was committed against Armenians. Instead, they should devote their valuable time and energy to obtain restitution for their losses. Let us not fall in the Turkish trap of getting stuck on proving the genocide year after year. Let us move on the next step, demanding our historic rights from Turkey. We should demand our rights by fighting lawsuits with the World Court, the European Court of Human Rights, and the US federal courts. In conclusion, let us pursue justice rather than just genocide recognition. Thank you.